No one had been alive in that building for decades, but the blood was still warm on the floor. Elio Marn was not easily impressed. As an archivist of temporal echoes, he had seen horrors forgotten by time. Soldiers screaming in the emptiness of trenches erased from history, children playing in streets that never existed, a woman kissing her husband moments before an accident that never happened. But that echo was different. It had appeared for the first time the previous morning, in one of the Temporal Institute's scanning routines. An anomalous pulse detected in Sector 12B. A factory abandoned more than 40 years ago. A simple fragment, thought Elio. A residual reverberation from some collapsed line. Nothing worthy of alarm. But the echo persisted. What's more, it became clearer by the hour. On arriving at the site, Elio activated his chronoscopic lens. A bluish mist danced in the air, the typical signature of echoes. Volatile, imprecise, almost poetic. But this time the mist formed outlines. People. Movement. He saw a man with a knife, a body falling, blood dripping onto the ground like paint on a rough canvas. The scene repeated itself in cycles of exactly 2 minutes and 13 seconds. He recorded everything as protocol dictated, and returned to the institute with the raw material. He spent the early hours of the morning cross-referencing data. No matches in the multilinear archive. No timeline, collapsed or active, recorded that murder. The victim didn't exist. Neither did the perpetrator. But the echo was still there, alive, insistent. The next day he returned to the factory. The pattern was repeated, but with a subtle change. The victim, a dark-haired woman, was looking directly at him in the last seconds of the projection. It wasn't possible. The echoes had no consciousness. They were just debris. He froze the frame and zoomed in on the face. His heart raced. The woman was familiar. He spent the next few hours accessing old records from abandoned lines. He scoured corrupted units, forbidden zones. And then, among the digital ruins of a universe aborted during a temporal collapse in 219A, he found her. Lena Vass, a civilian who had been missing for 10 years. Declared non-existent after the elimination of the associated timeline. Officially, she never lived. Elio leaned back in his chair. His eyes locked on the image of the woman who was now staring at him from inside an impossible fragment. For the first time in years, he felt something that his meticulous routine had buried. Fear. The echo wasn't just persisting. It was evolving. Lena Vass was dead. At least that's what the Institute believed. And the Institute wasn't wrong. Elio revisited the records. In 219A, Lena had disappeared just before the line collapsed. Like all inhabitants of discarded universes, her existence was undone the moment that branch was sealed. It was a cruel but necessary policy. Keeping collapsed lines accessible caused instability. Time, after all, was a delicate and selective structure. Even so, Lena appeared again. Not only in the echo, but also in other recent fragments of nearby areas. A shadow, a silhouette in the reflection of a shop window, a whisper in the audio of a recording. It was as if her presence was spreading through the cracks in reality. Elio did something he had never done before. He broke protocol and returned to the site of the anomaly with a low-frequency tuner, an experimental technology that picked up emotional residues in the echoes. The device squeaked and failed 3 times before emitting a crystal-clear voice line. "Can you hear me?" said a female voice. "You're the only one who sees me." The sound pulse made the sensors in the chronoscopic lens explode in light. It was impossible. Voices didn't go through echoes. They weren't interactive. But there she was, conscious, speaking from inside something she shouldn't have been aware of. In the next instant, the blue mist reconfigured itself. The cycle restarted. The man, the knife, the blood. But the woman didn't fall. Instead, she ran to Elio. Not to the real Elio, but to where he used to be. As if she knew he was watching her. "They got me out of here, but they left parts of me trapped." Back at the Institute, Elio didn't dare report what had happened. He knew how it would end. Sealing the sector, purging the data, oblivion. Instead, he rummaged through locked files until he found something even more disturbing. Lena Vass had been identified in other echo logs, in multiple collapsed lines, always with the same face, always close to some tragic event. Her appearances were erratic but constant, like a scar in the fabric of time. That night, while I was cross-referencing data, a notification outside the protocols flashed up on the screen. New anomalous manifestation, Sector 3C. An echo formed in real time. That never happened. Elio ran to the emergency terminal. The echo showed a hospital room. In the center, Lena, alive, sat looking directly into the lens. "If you want to understand, come to me." And the echo disappeared. Elio no longer knew where the anomalies ended and reality began. But there was one unsettling certainty. Lena wasn't just alive. She was defying time. The mist was breathing now. Elio watched the fragments with a mixture of fascination and terror. What had once been just a cycle of dead images was now taking on dynamic contours. The scene was reacting to his presence. And the most disturbing thing, it changed according to his memory. In the new manifestation, the killer had a face. A face that Elio knew better than any other. His own. His mind tried to rationalize it. Interference from the lens, sensory contamination, fatigue. But logic couldn't stand up to the data. The facial structure, the vocal patterns, the thermal scan, everything matched. The analysis confirmed it. Elio Marn was the perpetrator. And the victim, Lena, now alive in multiple echoes, reacted with fear and anger to each new repetition. Stunned, Elio searched for answers in the oldest and most forgotten archives. There, in a section labeled Codex of Anomalous Fixed Points, he found a veiled reference to the phenomenon. Pre-real persistence nodules. Fragments of events that never happened but try to happen anyway. Among the records was a confidential memo signed by the Institute's top brass. Case 017B. Immediately eliminate any related projections. The point presents retroactive instability. Possibility of mental contagion in observers. Do not allow further investigation. But it was too late. The contagion was already underway. Elio reviewed his memories and noticed cracks. Subtle details out of place. Corridor that changed color. A document that no longer said the same thing. Colleagues who treated him as if something was wrong, as if they knew something he himself had forgotten. And then came the final revelation. In the encrypted depths of the Institute system, on a server that required multiple forged authorizations, Elio discovered a visual recording, a temporal experiment conducted 20 years ago by a hidden division of the organization itself. The video showed a younger version of Elio activating an experimental time warp structure. At his side was Lena Vass, a temporal scientist. The sequence ended in chaos. The machine collapsing, Lena being swallowed up by the distortion, and the young Elio staring into the void with a devastated face. Line 219A had not been the victim of a natural accident. It had been erased by order of the Institute, and Elio had been at the center of the failure. He couldn't remember why his memories had been removed. To protect him. To protect the chronology. But the echoes, remnants of a time that refused to die, were returning what had been buried. And now Lena, or what was left of her, was calling out to him from every corner of reality. She was calling for the man who had killed her. Time broke the moment Elio walked through the door. There was no more mist. Only silence. He was walking through a space that belonged to no recorded line. An in-between place of fragmented pulses, as if memories and realities were colliding in invisible waves. The Institute didn't know about this space. Or perhaps pretended not to. Their past, present and future mingled without order, without logic. Only intention. And in the center waiting for him was Lena. Not as an echo. Not as a victim. But as something new. Something that had merged with the residue of multiple lines. Her eyes carried centuries of memory, of pain and awareness accumulated in versions of herself that had never lived, and that had never forgotten. "You finally arrived," she said. "I've tried so many versions. But this was the only one where you wanted to know the truth. Elio wanted to defend himself, to say that he didn't remember, that the Institute used him, that they erased everything. But Lena just raised her hand and touched the air between them. Images emerged, millions of versions of the same instant. Him triggering the device, her being torn apart, him retreating, hesitating, crying, running away. "You didn't kill me with a gun, Elio. You killed me with silence." The words pierced his chest harder than any blade. He fell to his knees. Everything made sense now. The echoes, the alterations, the impossible murder. They weren't trying to show a crime. They were trying to correct it. Lena knelt in front of him. Time doesn't want to be cured. It wants to be heard. With a gesture, she enveloped him in light. It was like falling into every forgotten memory, every erased pain, every choice buried for convenience. He saw all the possible lines, versions of himself who fought for her, who saved her, who forgot her. And in the end, only one truth. The pain had to remain, for something to change. The reality around her began to tremble. The space between the fragments collapsed. Lena became more tenuous, like a dissipating signal. "They'll come to erase everything," she whispered. "But there's one chance. Just one. Keep this." And she handed him something. A crystalline fragment of pure memory. When Elio woke up, he was in his office at the Institute. The display indicated no active anomalies, no echo, no Lena. But the crystal was still in his hand. It was real, and time silent watched. Now Elio writes. He records. He restores fragments of forgotten lines, no longer to catalog, but to preserve, because he knows that echoes are not just residues. They are voices crying out for a different future. And he listens. If you find an echo that refuses to disappear, don't try to erase it. Listen to it. It may be all that's left of someone like Elio. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any more stories like this one. Comment on what you would do if you discovered a time echo. Share with anyone who loves science fiction and time mysteries.